Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome back. My name is Steve. This is Steve Builds. And yesterday's Tuesday stream, we did Fusion Fun. And we modeled a hex insert for the Voron skirts to fit a generic Amazon USB extension cable. And I wanted to follow that up with a video here to tweak what we did and to go through the process of modifying for a revision to this design. And I thought it might be fun to do this as a standalone video. So what I wanted to do is turn this into a one-piece design using some ideas that might have popped up in chat. I think the filament locking mechanism might be a good thing to do. So I wanted to just kind of go through and modify the existing timeline. So down here in the bottom of the screen is a timeline of the features that we created yesterday, and see what we end up with. So let's get right to it. So I'm gonna take this little marker here and I'm gonna move back in the timeline, all the way back to our first sketch. This is our first sketch, and I'm going to activate that component we created by hitting this radio button. So the very next thing that we did with this sketch is we extruded the flange for the insert. Now, looking at this, I'll explain why in a minute, but I actually want to make this flange an extra millimeter thicker. That's going to move the filament locking that I'm planning on using to hold the USB definitely into the skirt, so it'll get held in place by the skirt. So if I right click down here, and we're gonna edit this feature, and it's going to say, now it moved 3 millimeters is what we said before. I'm just gonna say 4. Not a big difference. It's not gonna really even be noticeable in the final part, but it's going to move the whole thing forward a little bit. And for the moving back, we're gonna go ahead and reduce this by 1 millimeter. So we're gonna keep, no real reason other than I think it's gonna be a little more line up with the features on the USB cable. This could stay. I'm gonna change this to 14. Okay. So now we have our half piece, and I'm gonna hide the skirt piece that we've been using as a reference. So, and you'll see me move this model around quite a bit because that's kind of a CAD fidget, is to just sit here and rotate and look at something from different angles while you're letting your brain work. So if we step through, now these little functions here in the bottom corner of the screen will allow us to step through the different features that we did. So we did another sketch, which was on the middle of this, that defined the dimensions with some clearance of our USB connector that's going to be in there. I am going to change this piece, this little feature here. I'm going to get rid of it. I want to instead create a path for a piece of filament to lock in the connector. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to delete these, and just hitting the delete key, I'm going to delete these 3 lines. And instead, I'm just going to grab this. I think I can just move this up. Oops, I need to delete the mirrored versions as well, apparently. Delete, delete, delete. Delete those. And then this 1.5 millimeters dimension here, I can delete. Those aren't important anymore. So now if I drag this up here, and then I don't have to drag it the whole way, I can hit L for line, and I'm gonna connect these 2. Now that I've connected those 2, I am going to make this a square, a right angle corner by going up to the top here and doing my perpendicular constraint. and I'm going to take that line and make it perpendicular to that line. And if you notice, it's moved these mirrored lines over here, but since I created a new line here for the to connect them, it's not there. So we can fix that by going up to mirror and clicking that new line that we made, and then selecting the mirror line. And now if we click over here, oops, I need to select that. And now you see it comes up. And so we'll say, okay, now we've got a mirror line there. Now this other line that's here in the middle, we just need to do a coincident constraint, and we'll click this dot here on the end. We're gonna do a coincident to that spot right there. Okay, so this defines the steps of the basic shape of the cavity we're going to create for the connector. Now, while we're here, I am going to hit C for circle, and we're going to make a circle here as the filament locking mechanism path. I don't know exactly what diameter this should be to work well. I'm going to try 1.85 and see how that does. Just a little bigger than the 1.75 filament. Maybe it should be 1.9, maybe 2. I don't know what it needs to be, but we're gonna try 1.85. And I did that by hitting D for dimension and then clicking on the circle. So now we have a circle that we can move around in here. And I am going to constrain this to these two lines to kind of put it in the corner here, and figure that for that spot in the connector, there should be enough room for a piece of 1.75 filament to get shoved in there. I don't know that for sure. I've got the piece here that we printed last time. I'm gonna just kind of physically look at it and maybe grab a piece of filament, or my calipers here, and see how deep is that. Let's see. We measured that at, it's 1 point, okay. So that is 1.5 millimeters deep. So that's not going to fit there. But it's about 2 millimeters wide. So from this line in is about 1.5 millimeters deep. So why don't we do this? We want a reference line from here that's going to be, let's go here and here. This is just gonna be, we're gonna turn these into construction lines. So if we click it and hit X, it's gonna turn them into construction lines. And I want this to be 1.5 millimeters deep here. And this one to be 2 millimeters wide. So we're recreating that notch. We probably could have left it now that I'm working on this now, but this will be fine as well. So for the location of this filament path now, I am going to kind of move this over close, and then I'm going to hit the tangent constraint. And I'm going to say tangent that circle to this line. So that should push that filament into the bottom of that notch that's in the connector. And that means that it will, when we cut this hole, it'll be a little wider there. And then I think what I'll do is I'll do another line here. I want to center it in that notch. So if I do another line from the center of this circle to and we're going to zoom in here so you can see it, but we're going to go to the center of this line. We're going to move through here until, oh, that says that's center. That's the, here, let's escape that and let's move this out of the way. Okay, so I want to go, I don't want to confuse the center of this line with anything else. So if we do this line again, we come here to about what should be the center. There's the center there. See the triangle come up? That's a center constraint. So zoom back out. I want this to be a construction line still, so I'm going to hit X. But I also am going to make this perpendicular to this line. So now all our lines have turned black. They're fully constrained. We've selected a spot here that we're going to use for that filament path. Now we can take this and we can mirror that circle across our center line. We don't have to do the rest of this geometry. It's just reference stuff. It doesn't matter. We don't have to mirror that. So now we have a little filament path that we're going to use. Now, if we finish this sketch, and now down here in the timeline, we're going to go to the next step, and that's going to create that first part of the cavity for the connector. And then the next one may break. You see how it did that? You see how it grabbed, it was not what we expected, right? So if we right click on this and edit this feature, we'll see that it has much more of things selected. So we're gonna unselect the areas that we don't want. So see that? And we don't want that. We want this to be pretty much, we don't want that. Oops. Don't want that. Oh, I'm picking the wrong things. Okay. So we're back to where this is what we want. So now if we say, okay, now this is where we left off before. Now we don't have those little locating pieces in here now, but that's okay. If we go to the next feature, this is broken, it's red. I don't remember what this was. This was a chamfer of some sort. I know what it was. It was the chamfer to make this printable, because remember, this was gonna print like this, and there was a piece that stuck in here, and we did a chamfer, a 1mm chamfer. We don't need that anymore. So we're just gonna click on this, and we can right click and we can delete it, we can remove it. If we delete it, it's gonna say that this feature is referenced by other features in the timeline. Sometimes if you say delete, it may delete other features in your timeline depending on what the dependencies are. Sometimes you might not want to do that, and you might want to just say remove it. And that means that, or what is that? Oh, that's rename. Okay. Anyway, we're gonna delete. That's not gonna matter. So we don't use that anymore, so we can delete it. The next thing is now setting up these chamfers. And that's okay. We can set all of this up, and then we're gonna create those filament path things. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna step again. And now we've got our chamfer here. And we're gonna step again. Now we're gonna edit this feature. We're gonna edit this feature, and we're gonna hold down the control key to bring up the lines that it was applying to, and we're gonna turn these off, because I'm gonna make this one piece, so we don't want those 0.4mm chamfers there. Say, okay. Now we are missing, excuse me, we are missing the 0.5mm fillet that I had put on this. So if we go back before that, oops, I want that fillet. I think I had done a 0.5 or a 0.6 fillet right here. We're gonna put that back in. I'm gonna say 0.6. Say okay. Now we can go back to that and see. Now we've got a 0.4 chamfer, those 0.6 fillet, and then our next feature, which was another sketch, and this is when we were generating this. Let's go ahead and, before we do this, let's extrude our filament holes. So I want to bring back the sketch, make it visible, the last sketch. Now we can hit E for extrude, and we can select these we can select these holes, and then we can drag this back. Now, usually what I'll do here is I'll go back over here, and now we're gonna say we're just gonna go through all. So that's just gonna extend some holes to push filament through all. Say okay, and we can hide that sketch again. Now we've got our spot for the filament to go through and hopefully lock that connector in. So the next step is to bring up the bolt retaining mechanism. Now, when this is one piece, I think it's going to be fine to only use one screw. I'm going to leave the feature for both in here. But what I had done on stream yesterday is if we right click on this and go to edit sketch, this outer circle is 5.5 millimeters. That doesn't leave any room for size of screw heads. We use that as a reference to make sure we were overlapping the skirt. We need to actually extrude a slightly larger area to make sure we have clearance for that. So I'm going to create a new circle here, or an offset of that circle. If we hit O and hit this, and we want an extra 0.2 millimeters or 0.25 millimeters, I'll make that 6 millimeters diameter. Because it's 5.5, we add 0.25 radius, and it'll give us 6 millimeters, which is what we would typically expect as a clearance hole for the head of a button head M3. Say okay. So that gives us an extra little bit here. And if we finish this sketch, and our next extrude is going to be the center hole going through. So that's fine. It's going to go all the way through to that 2 millimeters back from the leading edge. And then the next extrude is going to be this center part. So see, that got the 5.5 millimeter section. If we right click on this and edit this feature, and we're going to grab the outside of that extra 0.5 millimeters total there and say okay. Now we've got a clearance area for the screw head. Go next, and we're going to get our this is red. This is because we lost that line that was generated by the first extrude. So if we right click on this and edit the feature, we can just select these two lines, and I think we did a 1 millimeter fillet there. So we just recreate it and say okay. Now we are at a point where we're going to mirror the body. So let's go next, and now we've mirrored the body, but last time we did this as a new body, so we would have two pieces that we could print separately and kind of clamshell together around the connector. This time we're going to right click on this and edit the feature, and we're going to change this to join. And we're going to say okay. Now we've got one piece. So you see how that's going to work? This, because of the shape of these connectors, we should be able to just push this through from the back, put some filament into the those spots, and then secure this in the skirt. So, and you notice where this filament goes is behind. This is in line with the back of the skirt, so those filament pieces are going to get captured in there and won't fall out. So now the next piece was, this is the oh, that was interesting. You see how the whole thing shifted, but maybe that was just me. So now the next piece was deleting the curve of the skirt from that front, and then getting rid of that little artifact there. So this is done now. So as far as I'm aware, this should actually print and work. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to print this. We're going to send it to the same, my Mark III there. I'm going to print it, and then we'll come back and see how well it worked. But be right back. Okay, first try print done. So this was the part printed in Prusa Slicer on the Mark III. And we ended up with this. One piece, little spots for the filament. The part will go in here, and it can go in a little too far. It can pull out, but if I take a piece of filament here, which, yep, that way, goes right in. So we want to go that into flush, and then cut this side. And then we'll put in the other side. And cut this side. It's perfect. That's awesome. That is awesome. This goes in here and snaps in. The little captured spots, captured filament, cannot be even seen. I kind of like that being a little thicker. Gives it a little more pronounced on the front. And then if we grab I think we can get away with just one screw to hold this in place. Now I left the spot for 2, but I'm only going to put 1. So that's going to go right there. And just a bottomed out. And that is perfect. There we go. One piece revision, going through the process to revise this. And that was kind of the point, is let's try a slightly different design. This is what I'm going to use. I'm going to print a bunch of these and put them on my printers. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this attempt at a standalone video finally. A little bit cheating because it was a little quick, and I only have a couple of things to put together, but we will see you next stream. Thanks again. Enjoy the build. Take care, everyone.